It's summer in the city, and as always, the best of Broadway is on full display. This is The Broadway Show. I'm Tamsin Fidel. The Kite Runner is now on Broadway, based on the best-selling novel from 2003. The new stage adaptation is now in previews, and it features one of the stars of the hit NBC crime drama, The Blacklist. Let's send it out to Paul Wontorek.
That's right, Tamsin. The Kite Runner is a story that means so much to so many, especially to stars and Broadway debut makers Amir Arison and Azita Ghanizada. We sat down at the Civilian Hotel to talk about the impact this production is making beyond the stage. The Kite Runner. I mean, this is a title people immediately know, right? Thanks to this amazing novel by Khaled Hosseini. 30 million copies, 60 languages or something. Yeah. This was like a big international...
Not a big responsibility.
And now you have to bring this well-loved story. Everybody walks in with a lot of love for it. How does it feel to be a part of this?
Quite simply, it feels like an honor. The book is perfect. So I honestly feel like don't get in the way of the story.
Yeah.
Serve it up. It's out there in the world. I just cherish to be able to be a part of it here.
I'm from Afghanistan, and that book, when it first came out, I actually didn't want to read it. It came to me a little bit later, 2006, because it was being adapted into a film, and someone sent it to me, and I was devastated reading that book. I mean, I could tell you the smell of the food, the dirt under their fingernails, like it was so visceral. And when the play came around, I had a really hard time reading the play without crying. And so I actually couldn't read the play. I couldn't finish the play when I first auditioned for it. And I actually didn't hear the whole play until the first table read because it was too hard to hear the story. And even on the stage, I have to turn away because there are moments where I can't be in a certain emotional state. I have to be in a different place when I come on, and I'm like, whew. So to be a part of something that's both culturally significant and globally, important, has had such an impact globally, and to have it be a small piece of Broadway is just, it's an unbelievable, unknown dream.
I have to echo something she said. When I first read the book, I cried 6 times.
Six.
6 times. I can tell you where they were. And they also, what surprised me is, besides it being sort of a novel and thoughts and the psychology of Amir and the psychology of the other characters, is that it was a page turner. Somehow it works as a psychological thriller in many ways, and you can't put it down. And in many ways, I feel the play is no different. And it has magic in it, and it hits me in a different place every night.
Yeah.
Every time we do a run through, another thing hits me. There is secret power in that play.
So you're playing many ages, right?
The span of the book is 26 years. I age from age 12 to 38 years old. Wow. And there are time jumps, but Act 1, it is a little under a year. And in that, I alternate from 12 to narrator. Like in scenes, the scenes happen to me, and in the narrating, it's like I have to take you to the next scene. And in the second act, we jump, I get to marry this lovely gal, and then we do a 25-year journey.
You both get to do that in the show.
Yeah, I mean, in the first act, I'm like 17,000 people, just running around the stage and having fun, playing in his memory. This is essentially a memory play. He's like telling us the story of his life. Get to show up in the second act and be kind of a young woman from Afghanistan trying to kind of create her own path, trying to find her voice and free her voice, and then finding her way through the play to kind of be a strong pillar in the story.
One of the things that's amazing about the book is that every character has a secret. Every single character, either something happens that they keep a secret, and it's a big bonding point for me to her, and I look to her for courage.
And it's really about how the story unfolds. I mean, that's what's so exciting. Amir is a very haunted man.
So haunted.
And it's really about sort of uncoiling that ball of all that.
And it's so powerful, his journey, right? Because you just see him as like a kid. Like we start with him as a man, and then he becomes a kid, and then you see him kind of, it's the hero's journey. He fumbles, he falls, he fails. And is he gonna crawl his way back up out of that and become the man he's meant to be?
The most unheroic hero. You will, so much so that I was almost not sure if I even wanted to do it. And the key for me that I discovered, because as an actor you want to make active choices, and he is so inactive and indecisive, and shame, which was like, okay, so how am I going to do that? But what I discovered is that actually in the narration is the bravery, that he is airing his dirty laundry, that he is sharing his pain, looking for help to get redemption. So through all those memories of just a lot of cowardice and shame and guilt, he's working it out, almost like the audience is almost like his sort of therapist, or Giles calls it his confessor.
So Azita, you left Afghanistan as a young girl.
As a baby, yeah.
As a baby,
Yeah.
okay.
When the Soviets invaded, much like the book, we were very lucky to receive asylum status and fled to Vienna, Virginia, which is a beautiful small town. And we then kind of brought the remaining members of our family out of refugee camps, various refugee camps, and into Virginia to resettle with us. And that was their journey is unbelievable. And for them to be able to tell their story, we tell a little bit of it in the play. Much of my childhood was going to the airport to pick up family members with just a plastic bag. And I just remember the grief as a young person. I just remember the photos of children with missing limbs and my parents saying, "This is what you escaped. This is what you're free of, and so never take your freedom for granted." That's kind of haunted me and stayed with me my entire life. But I've tried my best to continue to carry that journey that they went through and help people that didn't have the same opportunities that I was given.
How are we achieving authenticity in the play for Broadway? I know that's very important. It's definitely a big moment for representation.
We have, we're very fortunate to have 3 Afghans in the room. Azita, Salar, who is our tabla player and who has been with earlier productions,
Right.
and Humaira Gilzai, who is our cultural consultant. There's very lively, useful, and then all of them have experiences, so I'm like, how do you say that? What did you do? Oh my God, is that right? She's like, Amir, turn the light bulb, dance with the shoulders. And now I can't stop dancing with my shoulders. It's a total company on stage of including our swings and our understudies. It's 19, and all from the Middle East or South Asia. And everybody cares. And it's very, we're all together on wanting to get it right.
I had a number of Afghans come to the shows the last couple nights, and they sobbed. And meeting them at the stage door, they're like, I don't know if it was the trauma of this year or what it was, but I have never cried so hard and felt so much joy because of the authenticity that was layered into the things we say, the way that we're celebrating Afghanistan and its culture, which I don't think is often celebrated. We often tell the negative narrative. We often share the negative images of any minority culture. That's what we kind of want to play in and dance in. And this does not do that. This tells a beautiful, full woven tapestry story of a culture that's often misunderstood.
You've actually done a lot of work for diversity in a much larger sense. I want to hear a little bit more about your activist work, and especially with
Mina and Mensa,
yeah,
very important. I've been thinking about it and wondering about it, and she created it.
Yeah, let's talk about that. You fought to get a new classification for performers' contracts.
Yes, yeah, I built the first new hiring contract into a labor contract in 37 years in the entertainment industry. I had come off of a TV series called Alphas with David Strathairn and Malik Yoba and Mahershala Ali, this big thing, and thought this was a really important time for me in my career. And I tested for about 6 television shows, which is a tremendous, journey. And finally got one and was told at the table read that I was white. And I was very confused by this statement. They were like, what's your ethnicity? Because you're a diverse hire.
And then you get money back. Productions get money back if you click, what is classified as minority.
So I was going to lose the job. And I was like, well, Afghanistan is in Asia. You can check Asian. And they're like, but you look Middle Eastern. And I was like, well, yes, some people consider us Middle Eastern militarily, like it's complicated. And they're like, you don't have anybody protecting you. You should start something. And so on the I'm a political refugee. I worked on Capitol Hill in high school, and I'm a very determined young woman. And so I began the process of lobbying to find out what that was. I studied the MOUs at networks. I started to speak to the US Census. I spoke to scholars. And after about 2.5, 3 years of lobbying with other, actors of that descent that were kind of experiencing the same thing. They weren't getting work. So what was happening was the normal job that I would normally get, which was the girl next door, they were now asking me to wear a headscarf or speak in another language, which is fine. I'm an actor, I can do that, but it was too much. And so the increase in stereotypical images were happening because we didn't have a diversity box. And so I decided to remove that obstacle. And I built the new category in, and now we run around and we educate people and we put out studies. And something that, they're talking about the diversity of this play. On television, 78% of the time, and our last study that we're seen on TV, we're seen as terrorists. And so you think and we're about to put out another study that directly impacts how people feel about refugees.
Sure.
So when you have something like the fall of Afghanistan, you see this immediate fear because of the way that we're portrayed on television and have been since 9/11. And then when you see Ukraine fall, which is what Afghanistan went through 40 years ago, you don't have that same thing, right? They don't have the same legal loopholes that Afghans do. The Ukrainians have a much easier path to citizenship and to green card holders than the Afghans, that many of whom fought for the rights of the United States alongside of them have faced in the last several years. So kind of just working to be a voice. And I think being a part of this play has been such a gift because it allows me to merge my passions. We are partnering with Welcome US, which is President Obama and President Bush and Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton and a number of people created a program called Welcome.us that I sit on the National Council for, and it helps people learn how to welcome refugees in their communities all across the United States, how they can become a welcomer to Afghan refugees and to now Ukrainian refugees. And so in the inserts of our playbill, you can scan a QR code and everyone in the audience can learn how to welcome someone like the cast that they see up on that stage. And we're also partnered with another org that I'm an ambassador to called Women for Women, which right now is helping women get back to work in Afghanistan. And we have worked for many, many decades helping women survivors of war get back to work and also educating the men in their communities about how important it is. And so our audiences get to learn about Women for Women and how to get women in Afghanistan back to work and how to support them. And so that's our producers, that's this company, that's this cast, that's the authenticity that they care about. They didn't just want to, we have the show, which is authentic, and the cast, but then we're also giving the audience the opportunity to care. And that, to me, is the beautiful merging of like artistry and advocacy. And God bless Broadway if this is this experience. I'm here for it.
I read recently 90% of Afghan refugees are not, unfortunately, being let into the US. And when I was prepping and I was talking to Humaira, I said, do you know any people that are recent immigrants that speak English with an accent, preferably a man, because I've been learning from a woman and I want to hear any different cadences. Humaira introduced me to a guy who had come over and the reason he was able to come over was he worked as a translator for the US Army, back in, about 15 years ago. And so he was able to get a special visa to come over. And he came over and we were talking, the sweetest man, the sweetest gentleman, talking, and we were like, would you read this line? And we're talking about his experience. And I was like, oh, so is your family here? He goes, no, they're still in Afghanistan. And I said, he says, I can try to get my parents over with a special visa, but they can't leave my sisters because they're unmarried and they won't be able to, they won't be safe. And the entire play dropped in for me. Whoa. And what reminds me, for those who may not be Afghan that come to our show, is a very simple individual story. There's a lot that happens in this story. There's racism, there's privilege, there's power, there's love, there's marriage, there's heartbreak, but there's an immigrant experience. And a wonderful, rich, powerful man that has to come and work for a gas station and find their way and figure it out and learn a new language. That to me can feel universal and hits me in a very deep way.